Welcome to the third day of our conference. And I'm sure that we enjoyed yesterday's presentations and discussions. And today, for the next 1.5 hours, we will be having presentations and discussions on artificial intelligence. And we will start with a keynote from an expert in that area who has incredible experience in working with students to support them using AI. And thereafter, we will have invited speakers from our 3 local institutions also talking on the same subject. Let me, without wasting much time, invite Bill and Drew to the front.
Well, good morning, everybody. I hope you had a nice evening, and I'm delighted to be back here today. We all know that harnessing technology to gather data, evidence, and insights from our students has long been central to improving. Oh, can you hear me now? Yes. All right, sorry. So as we all know, harnessing technology to gather data, evidence, and insights from our students has long been central to improving student success. Without big data, institutions like Georgia State wouldn't have been made the significant strides we've examined and celebrated over the last couple of days. Apparently, data is the new oil, and all of you are the drillers. So, Siyaphumelela too has been a real leader in this space. In March 2020, just days before the whole world shut down in mid-March, EDUCAUSE, which promotes technology and education, named Siyaphumelela in its Horizon report as a global exemplar of the use of analytics and data success. So that recognition of all of your collective work was timely and telling at a moment when higher education was about to face seismic disruption, proving that in fact higher education could actually change. They did it, in a month, 3 weeks and 2 weeks in some cases. Siyaphumelela's work stood out as a model for staying grounded, data-informed, and student-centered, even in chaos. Now, while big data and analytics have carried us far, we're at the edge of something even more transformational, a once-in-a-century technological leap that could remake how economies function and how our students actually learn. That leap is artificial intelligence. It's here, and it's powerful. But, as Nietzsche warned, the devil is in the details, and when it comes to AI, there are a lot of details. That's why we're here today. You'll find a copy of the new rules of student success, which is right there inside your materials. Thank you, Ashton. I left it on the table, the prop. I strongly recommend that you take a look at this, give it a quick read. It does not take long to read, and it's a wonderful primer and also a great example of what you could be doing and what you need to think about when you're looking at AI. Now, in full transparency, the introduction that I'm making right now was created with the help of Microsoft's Copilot, an AI tool for editorial help. And literally, this is what the AI said to me. If parts of this sound unusually eloquent, witty, or suspiciously free of typos, give credit where credit is due. Thank the algorithm. But I should add that when I did my version of it and put it into the AI, Copilot did cut this gem from my original draft when I was quoting Nietzsche. The promise of AI is considerable, as is the risk that it could be disastrous. I kid you not, they removed that line. It removed that line from what I was saying today. Apparently, AI doesn't really like being called a disaster. So let's turn to someone who actually knows really what he's talking about when it comes to AI and to this revolutionary movement and work. The CEO of Mainstay, Drew Magiliozzi. Mainstay, formerly known as Admit Hub, is a research-backed platform that supports student engagement, staff engagement, to really help leverage a few people into hundreds of people to really be able to engage students well. And in the interest of, and it's been validated through 9 randomized controlled trials to improve enrollment, retention, and academic success. And in the interest of full disclosure, the Kresge Foundation is an investor in Mainstay, and I believe we also have funded at least one of the randomized controlled trials. Mainstay's chatbot was critical to Georgia State's success, and Drew brings nearly 2 decades of experience at the intersection of education, technology, college access, and equity. He's spoken at ASU GSV, ACRO, and the AI Summit at Stanford. His insights have been quoted in Inside Higher Ed. And like Tim, Drew does not come directly from a computer science or a statistical background. He has an AB degree in history and literature from Harvard and is also a graduate of Hack Reactor. So please join me in welcoming Drew to talk to us a little bit about the new rules of AI and student success. Drew?
Bill, that was beautiful. Thank you. AI couldn't have done it any better. First of all, I want to say thank you all for welcoming me. Thank you to Sadie, thank you to Siyaphumelela and everyone involved in making this event possible, and thank you, Bill, for inviting me here. I've felt incredibly welcome and very impressed with what I've seen so far, which I think you'll see in the presentation. A lot of the work you're doing is very much aligned with some of the best practices. I'd also like to take a moment. You've heard much of the story from Tim already about our work together, but I'd love to acknowledge a little bit about what makes our partnership special the last nearly 10 years. We have a shared mission together to build and deploy AI technology for the express purpose of student success. We share an understanding that AI really is simply a tool, a powerful tool, but a tool nonetheless. And a tool like any other technology can deliver extraordinary results in the right hands, and it can actually be quite damaging in the wrong hands. And so to have purpose-built technology that proactively reaches students where they are in the moments that matter most is how we've gotten the results together. And frankly, Georgia State brought to us not only this commitment to data-driven student success, but the willingness to show all the student journey, warts and all, about what is working and what isn't, and to uncover the details together. And as a result, we built something that probably neither of us could have built alone. And the key was acknowledging that the student journey looks a lot like this. It's incredibly complex, has many starts and stops, and frankly, every step of the way, Georgia State was a pivotal partner to help us understand the complexity of this journey. But they also haven't been our only partner. Over the years, Mainstay's worked with several hundred institutions. We currently work with more than 200. We reach about 5 million learners annually. We're up to 12 RCTs now, Bill. Yeah, approaching 1 billion messages, and have helped a considerable number of students persist to a degree. This is not to share our accolades, but to say that in the process of doing this, we've learned a lot. And I'm excited to share some of that learning with you. But first, let me tell you a little bit about what Mainstay is. So first of all, we're a public benefit corporation, which means we have a dual mission, not just to make money, but to make a social good in the world. And we measure that by college and career success, helping people get through college and into successful careers. When it comes to our technology, I will most assuredly say we are not merely a chatbot. In fact, chatbot has become a bit of a 4-letter word at our company. This suggests that it's a little widget that sits in the corner of our website and waits for people to ask questions. And that is wholeheartedly the opposite of what we do. We take a dramatically different approach. So we're basically 3 things depending on who you are. If you're a student, we are a success coach in the palm of your hand, primarily over text message, but we can be on other channels as well. WhatsApp would be a popular one here. And we reach out to students in the moments that matter based on the data that we have access to. So the data infrastructure is very important when you're thinking about AI. For the staff, we are a co-pilot. We allow them to monitor all these conversations and even to get involved in the moments that they want. And we'll even use generative AI to suggest what might they say at a particular moment to save them time, energy, and give them the best practices in student success coaching. And with our technology, folks like Zoe, one of our best partners at Cal Poly Pomona, has scaled herself from coaching 500 students on average in a given month to now coaching more than 10,000, and with a very high engagement rate. And then finally, if you are a leader, one of the most interesting things, and we delved deeply into this yesterday, was the ability to listen at scale and derive from all these conversations trends and insights around what is tripping students up and where might we change policies and practices to better serve them. This is all to say, AI is best not as a replacement for human beings. I often use this analogy in the US that it's not a robot, but more of an Iron Man suit for communication. But something tells me a different Marvel superhero may resonate more with this crowd. And frankly, it is the ability to use technology to amplify the work of amazing educators. And that is what I would encourage you to think about when you think about AI. Put at the center the people who are doing the work and the relationships they're having with students, and you will find tremendous gains. If you neglect it, you may do inadvertent harm. So without ado, here is a bit of the promise of AI. I will say that AI right now is simultaneously far overhyped and underestimated. And how could that be possible? And really it's skilled in many things, but usually narrow tasks that don't require a tremendous amount of variance, but doing narrow tasks exceptionally well can have a massive impact. And frankly, doing so with a purpose-driven collaboration between people and technology to drive positive outcomes is a great goal. So, Bill, you mentioned the white paper. I'm going to summarize just 4 of the pillars of what are the new rules for AI for student success right now. And currently, the first is really to identify a problem, one that involves data and make a commitment to measuring success. The goal is to prove you can move the needle on a metric and then constantly continue improving and scaling it up. And so really, I like to say that the why of AI is far more important than the what. And when you're encountering AI, most people will be faced with a challenge, a question. Should we strive for more efficiency, or shall we do the hard thing and strive for better outcomes? Frankly, you can do both, but the temptation right now is everyone is always thinking like, what can AI automate? Can AI do this job that people do and make people irrelevant? And I'll say, this is probably the most common question, and it is simple and lacks nuance and can get you into a lot of trouble. I gave this example yesterday. I am 100% confident that AI today can deliver a perfect wedding ceremony. And I would posit there's no one in this room, although maybe there was a young lady yesterday who might challenge this, who would want this for themselves. Because the job of a wedding ceremony, to administer a wedding ceremony, is not to do the pitch perfect language. It's not to read word for word a script, but to deliver something that you cannot quantify, that is far more than just the words on the page. It's about a deep connection between human beings. And I would posit there's something very similar that happens in education. When we are teaching and learning, it's not just about regurgitating material or being a subject matter expert that matters most. It's about the work of motivating a young person, of sparking their interest and inspiring them to struggle just a little bit longer than they would on their own. And so I would challenge you when you're thinking about the AI implementation projects you're going to do, and I've heard of several already on your various campuses, to ask yourselves the harder question, which is actually what must AI automate to improve outcomes for all students? Because I assure you it is possible not just to get better outcomes, but to close achievement gaps in the process. You've heard Tim share the data from Georgia State. You can do this as well. And indeed, you must strive for this. in doing, actually, it's one of the core principles of the Hippocratic Oath of AI that we have at Mainstay. There's a link to it in in the white paper, but it's very brief, and I would encourage you to also think for yourselves. You know, it's only 8 principles. Think for yourselves, what do we hold dear when we're implementing AI? What is absolutely essential? And make your own Hippocratic Oath if you're thinking of embracing these projects. The second is keep humans in the loop. You've heard, this may in fact be the most important one. You've heard about the successful RCTs we've done. Well, the most important one we ever did was actually the one with the least impact. You could call it a failure, but there is no failure if you learn from your mistakes. And this was the one time we did not successfully have a human in the loop, in the conversation, consistently. And it turns out that having a human in the loop is utterly critical to getting the best possible results. And the interesting thing is, why is having a human in the loop critical? Well, Tim shared a little bit on the first day. When a student is chatting with AI, they can be incredibly vulnerable, and they can ask questions because they don't feel judged. And this is how we were very eager and excited about this, which led to this subsequent study. But it turns out there is a flip side to this superpower. Every superpower has a deficit on the other side. And it turns out the lack of judgment also comes with a lack of accountability, which is I am willing to share a vulnerable fact about myself with an AI, but if I promise that I'm going to deliver that paperwork on Tuesday, I don't care if I let the AI down. It turns out what you need is a human in the loop. Not a lot, only 2% of the time. If 2% of the messages are administered by a human, it triples the impact, triples the follow-through rate of the project, of the work the student is doing. So I would strongly encourage, as you do your work, do not eliminate humans from the equation entirely. That would be a mistake, but a very small dosage can have a tremendous impact. In fact, I love this quote from Paul Daugherty. It's, those that use machines to replace humans will eventually stall, whereas those that think of innovative ways for machines to augment humans will become the leaders of their industries. And frankly, I am already hearing in the work you are doing elements of this. Your intuition is strong. I will also urge you, when you think about AI, and you'll inevitably work with vendors, I would strongly suggest that you do not think of it as a tool you are buying, but rather one you are hiring. And so when you're hiring someone to do a job, you have to deeply understand what is the job to be done. The job, for instance, of delivering a wedding ceremony or teaching a course is oftentimes more than a simple act. There are other ancillary facets to it. And also, when you hire someone to do a job, a human or an AI, well, you've got to train it. And you can't expect it to be perfect on day one. Both will make mistakes. It's inevitable. But with deliberate effort and training, it will get better constantly, and at the end, you will have a product or maybe an AI staff member that is capable of working 24/7, 365, never gets tired or cranky, and has the capacity to fill gaps that maybe you never dreamed possible, and support students in ways that really are deeply effective to them. The third rule is be proactive. I've said this a few times, and I cannot say it enough. The ability to push a conversation directly to a person's fingertips or eyeballs in a moment where they need it is absolutely critical. Whether it's text message or WhatsApp, actually the medium is another powerful thing. By having a text message be the means of communication, it's extremely limited. But actually the limitation is a superpower if you acknowledge it, which is it forces you to take a very large communication that might be 5 paragraphs in an email and distill it down to what is the one sentence that matters most here. That is because that is the only thing that can fit through the keyhole of a text message or a WhatsApp message. And so the power of the technology and the medium is sometimes in its limitations. And also the importance of data. I know you're working on your national data warehouse, and institutions are at various stages on readiness with data, but I will strongly urge an imperative to get it together, because timely, clean, accessible data is the thing that will make AI most powerful and most effective. And then finally, this one is important. It's worth noting that if you are getting on the journey with AI, it is an endless one. It is one of constant pitfalls, improvements, steps forward and back. The journey is endless. And the key is to take the first step and never stop. And also, you need to plan for the unknown. I love this quote. This is, how many of you heard of Amara's Law? It's that we tend to overestimate the effect of technology in the short run and dramatically underestimate it in the long run. And I will say that certainly AI falls into this category as something, again, overhyped but deeply underestimated. And I just want to give some context, because some people have said to me, hey, is this just another flash in the pan? Is this all hype? Is this really going to be a difference maker? And frankly, I posit that for the leaders in this room, there is going to be a moment where you turn to your colleagues and, based on something you've seen in the news with AI, say, everybody stop what you are doing. No, really, stop everything. This changes all we are doing today. And if this causes you fear, uncertainty, or doubt, you're not alone. Frankly, I'm as fearful and uncertain and doubtful about AI as anyone. But I also know that it's proceeding at an unprecedented rate. And frankly, the richest and most powerful companies in the world are investing trillions of dollars to make this technology more powerful every single day without much concern for the consequences. And frankly, it can feel like AI is happening to us sometime. But I want to urge you that you have way more agency than you realize. Frankly, I like to say hope is a verb, which means take action. And it is our duty to take action to shape how AI gets implemented in higher education. And I think it's a moral responsibility because of the impacts this is going to have on society. This is a fascinating chart because it shows the rate at which AI has accelerated. And this is represented in orders of magnitude, like the Richter scale, where each number is 10 times the previous number. And so GPT-2 is baseline. GPT-3 just a year later was 100 times larger. GPT-4 was, again, 100 times larger than that. And with each stage, you get an increase in intelligence. We've gone from preschool level intelligence with AI to now we are actually beyond GPT-4 to about the intelligence of an average college student. And some would even say the most frontier models, these reasoning models, are as capable of an average PhD student in their abilities. And we are not stopping. These companies are plowing orders of magnitude more compute and resources and money, and it is hard to know when it will stop seeing advances. And so the term of art is AGI, which is artificial general intelligence. This idea of when AI is as intelligent as a human being. But the interesting thing that happens with AI is we are constantly moving the goalposts. You guys might see this where there'll be a headline, AI defeats the world Go champion. And it'll be amazing for about 15 minutes. And then it'll be old news. And we have this way of rationalizing to ourselves, oh, well, but it can't do X. In fact, somebody has said, there's a quote, AI, the definition of AI is that which a computer cannot do yet. And we have this self-preservation in our own ability to feel special, I think, that we minimize some of these achievements, and the news cycle quickly moves on. But I will say, pay attention, because the news is coming faster, and it's of greater consequence. And the devil is in the details on the last mile implementation. And when it comes to your institutions, I've seen AI happening on the fringes, in these posters on the sides of the room, for example. But to the VCs and the DVCs in the room, this is a message for you. To achieve its full potential, AI needs to be core to your institution's strategy. And that, to be clear, that doesn't mean I'm telling you to spend more money on it. I'm asking you to spend your attention. I'm asking you to bring this into focus because there is tremendous work happening on the fringes, and it needs to get watered with time and attention. Also, your role is to focus and challenge your people to achieve even greater things, the boldest goals for your institutions. Actually, Tim, the greatest gift you ever gave us was after we achieved our summer melt results. You said thank you, and getting over the threshold is not the end, but the beginning of the journey. Now we have to get them to the finish line. And you focused us on an entirely new goal, which frankly is 10 times harder, but far more meaningful. And I think that the leadership in this room has the opportunity to focus the people who are doing the work on the ground on the biggest, boldest goals that are possible. I often end with this slide, which is like, not to ask what AI can do for your institution, but what your institution can do with AI together. This is John F. Kennedy. He comes from my home state. But actually, I think there's probably a better slide for this group, which is to cite this African proverb: if you wish to go fast, go alone. If you wish to go far, go together. Someone said this yesterday in the panel on AI. And frankly, that panel, if y'all were in this room, it was a small group. I wanted to jump up and scream amen and hallelujah to almost everything that was said. You are all on the right track. The AI innovation you're doing right now is by sheer force of will, tenacity, and creativity. I've heard the lack of money is real, and a constraint on resources is significant. I'm not going to acknowledge that. But you have something that money cannot buy: your ability to do this together, your creativity and enthusiasm. And so I would encourage you to dedicate a special community of practice, a learning community, to what AI can do for student success, and share what's working and what's not working, because it's important to learn from our failures. And continue to build that shared data infrastructure we talked about. Everything you're doing is correct. And for those practitioners out there, the ones who are doing the work and that are on these posters, I have to remind you, Wakanda wasn't built in a day, my superheroes. You are doing the work on the ground, and it will be hard, but it will be worthwhile in the long run, because a few people with this technology can do amazing things. We've shown that it's possible. And frankly, I've heard a sense that folks feel behind. Oh, the AI race is just beginning. And how effectively you work together and infuse it into education will determine the outcome of not just your institutions, but of society at large. We have a moral responsibility to use this technology to unlock the untapped potential of our society, and to keep up with the pace of change, because work is going to be changing more than any of us can imagine, and education is the vehicle for helping people evolve, because it will happen fast. I only have a couple minutes for questions, but I'd love to take one if anyone has any. Bill is going to ask me a question.
Thank you. And Elias and Moses are going to be passing around microphones in the audience, so please do have short questions ready to go, because we only have about 10 minutes. But my question is about attacks on DEI in the United States. So, I'm very worried that that's going to build in a lot of bias into algorithms on race, on sexuality, on religion, on various other things, because we aren't going to be allowed at the higher education level to focus on some of these issues. And I was just wondering, do you think that South Africa, given its unique history of overcoming apartheid, enshrining LGBTQI plus rights in the Constitution, could actually be a bulwark to address some of these issues of embedded bias against communities within AI?
Thanks, Bill. That's a great question. Did AI help you write that question? Yes, I wholeheartedly think. Actually, there was a young man in the workshop yesterday who proposed something similar, and I actually think it's a great business opportunity for folks who are going to do that. These large language models are massive and contain the entire internet, But almost like a sculptor, when you fine-tune them and prompt them, you are chipping away and molding them to a particular use case. And the devil is in the details, as you said, and the local context is where really all the gains will be made. And so the folks who figure out how to train, fit, and modify these global models for very local contexts, teaching them the nuances of local languages, teaching them how exactly to get involved in a process that is highly unique to a community is really the key. There is great business opportunity, there's great opportunity for impact as well, so I would strongly encourage it. Any other, there's a hand up, there's a few hands. Does someone else have a microphone? Oh, we do, great, wonderful. Yeah. I think the hands went down, but yeah, great, perfect.
Okay. Morning, everyone. My name is Nogupela Kanyile from Rhodes University. I'd like to commend you for the work that you're doing. I think it's very amazing. And my question is directed to the DVCs and the VCs. How can they use this? What approach can they use to actually use the AI in a good way? Because I feel like now it's actually benefiting the students more than the universities because we're using it on a daily basis in our assessments or tasks. Thank you.
That is a great question. And I have an answer that you might not expect. I would encourage you, and we did a survey yesterday about who is using AI, and there's a very small number of people who are using it on a daily basis. The key is practice. And it can seem daunting to try to do work with it. I would encourage you to play with it. Find a little bit of childlike innocence and open the tool and don't fear making mistakes. There's nothing you can do to harm yourself by playing with AI and testing its limits and boundaries. It is a fascinating tool, but there's a great research study called The Jagged Frontier of AI, which looks at how to get the most benefit from it. And it quantified that it takes about 14 hours of using the tool, of actively using it, before people start to really achieve efficiency and better outcomes. And so if you do not have 14 hours yet with one of these tools, I would strongly urge you to get it. And the best way is to do something of low consequence. Brainstorm with it about what you're going to buy your spouse for their next birthday, or how you're going to spend an afternoon on a Sunday, or take a vacation, or ask it how to teach the principles of thunder and lightning to a 5-year-old. You'll find that its capacity is only constrained by your imagination. So to the degree that you can unlock your imagination and play, and then share what you've experienced and learned and done with others, will be a tremendous unlock for how you can get the most of it. Students do this naturally. The older we get, the harder it is to play. I'd encourage you to have fun and waste time, and by doing so, you will unlock tremendous efficiency and progress in the future. Yeah, we got a few other hands up, maybe one in the back there I saw, and then over here, we can go, actually maybe go here next, because you're right very close, and then we'll go in the back after. Yeah, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Magiliozzi from the University of Pretoria. And my question is, given the increasing integration of artificial intelligence in our educational system, how can its implementation be managed to effectively mitigate potential disadvantages, particularly concerning its impact on student learning process and also the preservation of student self-esteem?
Oh, I like that question. There's no easy answer to this, I will say. And you will make mistakes. But I think the key is, I shared our Hippocratic oath. The key is going eyes wide open and understanding that you need to measure and pay close attention, not just to what the big outcomes are, but what the second and third outcomes might be, and really hold yourself to a high standard and measure success. And when it comes to student self-esteem, we had a great example yesterday that it can be a great boost. It can be a wonderful tool to rehearse and practice if you have a job interview. Hey, you can role play with AI and do the voice mode on Claude or ChatGPT. And these are great tools. I use them all the time. When I have a board meeting coming up, I will upload the presentation and I'll say, pretend you are a board member and venture capitalist and pepper me with the hardest questions about our strategic plan that you possibly can, and we'll role play. So it's a great tool, but it can also be used, or maybe perhaps overused as a companion in place of actual human connection. And so I just think we need to be mindful. We've had this experience with social media where we had technology that we thought was going to bring us together, and instead it just made us all depressed and sad. We have the opportunity here to harness technology to again bring positive benefits, but if we are not careful and we are not paying attention to what's happening, we could do the opposite. So I think it takes a collective effort, and I think students need to speak up. If something isn't working, or is maybe harming their learning, or is not making them feel more connected to their teachers, they have to say so. So please, yes, it takes everyone. In fact, when you form your communities of practice and start building, build with students in the room. They need to be co-creators. It will be better because of their involvement wholeheartedly. I think we had a question. There's a man in the back with the microphone. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Name is Atenkosi Nzala from the University of Cape Town. I wanted to just have a conversation around two questions, which I'm hoping that will be useful for every other university staff that is here. As we are using AI and playing around with it, yes, and I really like that incentive that you bring in terms of what happens as a byproduct in playing around with AI. But I'm also wondering, from your perspective, what are some of the ethical safeguards that are non-negotiable when deploying AI in low-resource institutions? As you can see, we're from different diverse universities that are serving different contexts in South Africa. So what are some of the things that we have to really think about that are non-negotiable when we are deploying AI in our institutions? And then the second part to that question is, can AI deepen equity gaps if trained on biased institution data? Particularly when you've created an AI sort of like solution for one particular faculty or department,
Yeah.
and then now you want to make sure that it's accelerated throughout the entire institution. What are some of the things that you have to look at, and what do you have to do to ensure that you don't further deepen equity gaps in those departments or within that institution itself?
Yeah, in fact, you can deepen and make equity gaps and make things worse. Even well-intentioned people can do so, which is why you have to measure constantly what's happening. So yes, it can, but it can also help. So understand that it is a double-edged sword for sure. In addition to all the things I've already said, I will say there, and Tim mentioned them the other day, there are a couple of aspects that are absolutely critical if you're going to be deploying this within an institution. And while it might seem like every institution in America is well-resourced, I assure you they are not. We've worked with many schools, in fact, schools where I've said, hey, can you help us get connected to your data system so we can have access to student data? And they will turn the Zoom camera and point it at the filing cabinet and say, how are you going to connect to that? And so it is not, it is certainly not that everyone has everything in America by any means. I will say there are two things I would say for particularly low resource communities that are absolutely critical. One, it needs to be available to everybody, and it needs to be able to meet them where they are, and it needs to be proactive, which means it has to be delivered via WhatsApp in your context, and so that people can engage. And also, you cannot rely on people coming to you. You must push it out to them to give them the greatest benefit. The second, and Tim mentioned this the other day, are the trigger words, the ability to detect sensitive topics, we call them, in the platform. This is one of the most critical weaknesses of things like ChatGPT. It happens in a black box, the conversation, and if a student mentions self-harm, no one will ever know. Or if they say they're thinking of dropping out, it might try to encourage them not to, but it will not get a person involved. And our experience getting the humans involved is critical. And if you're going to be deploying a technology solution similar to Mainstay, I would make sure that it has the ability to escalate in an instant the moment somebody says something about self-harm or anything else of such consequence. I think we are at time. That was a great final question. Thank you very much, everyone. Keep up the good work. Frankly, you are already doing it, and you just need to do it together. I can't wait to come back next year and have you all present to me all of the progress you've made. It's not going to be easy, but it will be worthwhile, I assure you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Drew, for the insightful presentation. I'm going to invite a panel of speakers to continue with the discussion on AI to the stage. Yeah. Prof. Verhoef from Northwest University, please come up. And Dr. Fourie-Jardim from University of the Western Cape. And Dr. Adendorff from Stellenbosch University. And one of the Siyaphumelela coaches, Elizabeth Booi, who happens also to be the president of the South African Association for Institutional Research. And she will be chairing this session. The session will be 40 minutes long, and 20 minutes will be devoted to the three speakers. And then Elizabeth will give some kind of summary within 10 minutes, and we will reserve the last 10 minutes for questions and answers. Over to you, Elizabeth.
Can you get us the right presentation? The invited speakers that you see in front of you today, since I'm the chair, I'm going to abuse this session. They presented yesterday in a workshop. Those of you who were here yesterday, it will almost seem like it's a repeat, but it's not. We will have time for questions. My reflection won't be that long while we're waiting for the right presentation to come on. That's why I said I will abuse this stage. Yesterday I told people that I'm a detective. Today I stand here as a success. I'm gonna call you, when you see me and meet me, call me success. I'm gonna hand over to.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Again, a wonderful privilege for us. Like Andrew said, we are small, but we are really here to agree with one of the scholars that says, we're not going to change the world, but we'll spark a brain that will. So thank you so much. This is just an extension of our session that we had yesterday, and thank you so much for all the engagement afterwards. We are going to then just elaborate on some of the points as a summative assessment or a summative version of our individual presentations yesterday, and it's all about student success. And I'm very grateful that Mainstay, Andrew, thank you for also showing us, on the student support side, how we can vouch for student success. And for us, we are going to bring together all three perspectives from yesterday's presentation, and Prof. Anné Verhoef will speak about, and also in alignment with Mainstay, the new rules of AI in student success from an academic perspective. Then Dr. Adendorff from Stellenbosch will speak to what are our assessments really telling us. And then I will bring the crowd together in terms of the AI squared competency framework. And I will just discuss the pillars or the tenets on which this framework is built that we didn't have a chance yesterday to do. So sit back, relax, fasten your seatbelts, and enjoy the ride.
Good morning, everyone. I'm glad we can follow up the session, Andrew, after you, because what we're going to say, I think, is going to complement it. We're talking the same language here. But what I found when we presented yesterday and listened to you, and also after I've read that pamphlet of yours or that booklet carefully, I realized I think the emphasis from Mainstay is more on how to have success in student support through AI. And there are many ways, and we should incorporate it. We don't have a choice. AI is there, it makes our works easier on so many ways. So we thought, what are we going to contribute then? And we thought, let's see what the new criteria would be for student success. With AI, that's part of the academic environment now. And that's changing the whole higher education landscape. So we put our heads together last night after the presentation, yesterday afternoon, and we have this now to propose this morning. So it's new work. Before AI, I think student success could easily be measured by completion of degrees. We heard it through different presentations here. If a student succeeds, he got his degree. And there's a huge variety of ways we should support students to get there. But we also heard from the Vice Chancellors they have to report on all the metrics that's improving. And that's still part of student success. And of course, the development of graduate attributes. That, I think, is always part of student success. And those three, you will see, remains part of the landscape of measuring student success in the age of AI. But we came up with another few things that I think AI makes so important for measuring student success. And those are, we listed 7. I'll go through them very quickly. And then my colleague, first Hanelie, will say something specifically about assessment, and Mariette about a holistic approach that is needed. So just to say again, those who were not here yesterday, I am Anné from Northwest University. I'm the director of our AI hub that was established beginning of this year, which is sort of touching on what you said now, Andrew. We have to have an institutional plan and work together from a centralized place to integrate all the AI activities. So that's my job. But up to the end of last year, I was still a full-time professor in philosophy. Yesterday, I highlighted there are a lot of potential of AI for student success to create it. And we should not ignore those. We should actually implement it much more, as we heard over and over again. And I'm not going to go through that list again. I've discussed it yesterday. I want to list a few new criteria for student success in the AI age. And the first one is we cannot deliver students now if they haven't, or successfully, if they haven't engaged with any AI tool or haven't experienced an AI tool in their studies. That's crucial. It's not only technology exposure that's needed, but real engagement with AI. Otherwise, we can say we are successful in delivering students and we have successful students, but it's not true. They need to get exposure to AI and from AI in different ways. So we can have courses, continuous integration of AI, using bots, and I think that's a thing I showed yesterday as well. Using an AI tutor bot is exposing students to the experience of having an AI tool, teaching them something and learning something of the technology at the same time. So, and it helps us to get students successful in the end to get their degrees. I showed this yesterday as well. With MindJoy at engineering, with maths, without any intervention from the bot, the average was 55%. But as soon as we engage more with students, during the semester, the average went up to 59%. You can see it's not a massive increase, but we have the advantage now that those students experience some interaction with AI. The second rule, I'm going quickly, we don't have much time, I would say, or second criteria is development of specific skills. And we've heard that yesterday in the presentation of Andrew. We cannot ignore that. There will be new skills needed in an AI age. And there's a lot of research being done of it. You'll see there the World Economic Forum listed those. This was published in an article earlier. Creative thinking, analytic thinking, things like that. It should be part of our measurements. Are we delivering students successfully that are also successful? The third one is and there was a question just now about academic integrity, and of course this will be more and more challenged by AI in future. Academic integrity, I think if we deliver students, and I think Professor Muki also said it yesterday, we should deliver the leaders of tomorrow that are not corrupt. And if we allow them to misuse AI and to cheat through AI, how are we going to create leaders of the future that embrace integrity and live with honesty? And that will be the challenge if we say we deliver students with success, not only letting them get their degrees. I'm going quickly, but you see I showed this yesterday as well at Northwest University. We have a system in place for reporting the unethical use of AI, for example, and I admit the detection is difficult, but sometimes you can just see the prompts are there, the fake sources are there, and there needs to be intervention. And then there needs to be an educative intervention. And you will see the last 6 months, we reported about 2,500 students. Educative intervention took place the first round. Second round, you will see much less students reported, and then in the end, only a few were referred to our judicial services. We should reach outcomes, and that's also important things, we touched on it yesterday, that are really meaningful. If a student gets a degree from my university and the degree is meaningless because AI can do everything, I cannot say I was successful or have some student success. And I showed this yesterday. We did the exercise with engineering. We tested all the modules and ask which modules can be replaced or be being done by AI, which one not, and that was the result. It's really an interesting exercise to do, and I think this is the future of thinking about universities, that we rethink what is meaningful to do in outcomes. Of course, completing assessments with the right ethical AI use, that's an important one. I see my time is up, so I'm going to take some of your time. Again, AI can help us with this. It's a problem, but it's also a tool to create new AI, new assessments, but also new ways of marking or grading those assessments that incorporate AI. And I showed this yesterday. There are different levels of use of AI in assessments. A point that I'm not going to elaborate now, but we need to let students be aware if they succeed, they must remain students who keep their agency and responsibility as persons. We cannot just blame AI or pass everything over to AI and step back as human beings. And the seventh one I want to highlight is we need to rethink how we build curriculums, scaffolding, things like that. And previously we had Bloom's taxonomy, but we need to rethink this. We need to rethink, and there are wonderful research being done. This is just one example. But of course, if we want to teach our students something, if they want to learn something in the age of AI, this will be part of the package. Okay, that's where I stop. Hanelie, you can continue.
Oops, that was quick. Thank you, Anné. Now I have it in my hand. That's even better. And everybody else. I'm not going to do such a great summary. I'll do a one slide in a moment. I'm going to try and be slightly more provocative. What is our assessment saying? Now, when you see that question, where's your mind going, if anywhere? Is it going to the curriculum? What is our assessment saying about the curriculum and what matters? Or is it going to the educator? What is our assessment saying about the educator and their pedagogical choices and maybe their assessment and AI literacy? Or is your mind going to the student? What is our assessment saying about our students and their strategies and their work put in? What if we change the question slightly and say, what is our assessment saying to our students? What can students deduce from our assessment? What's the messages that we are giving for our assessment about what student success is? Is it telling them, is it about achieving a specific outcome or valued outcomes, assuming that our assessments actually can accurately and do determine those outcomes. Here I want to share 2 examples. A colleague of mine many years ago, Professor Francia Sillier, now at UCT, did a study on assessment and health sciences at Stellenbosch University. And in this study, final year medicine students, so to be doctors the next year, shared the following conundrum with him. They said they didn't know whether they had to figure out whether they had to focus on studying for the material that they thought they would need when practicing as doctors in the hospital the next year, or should they study the material they need to pass the exam and be able to practice as doctors in the hospital the next year. What do you think they chose? What would you choose? Why does it even have to be a choice? Why are those 2 things different? In another very different study asking different questions in the science faculty at Stellenbosch University, a first-year student in a notoriously difficult module at that point in time said the following: I wish I had time to learn and get to understand the content in this module, but I have so many tests that I never get to learn. When did assessment become divorced from learning in higher education? In reflecting yesterday about, in reflecting in the context of this, on those very inspirational poems by the Siyaphumelela Scholars, and you guys are truly amazing. You make me want to do better at what I'm doing. I'm wondering what the assessment poem would look like for some students at our institutions. Would it sound something like this? I am 90% and excited. I'm prepped for success. I am no longer 90%, but I'm still prepped for success. I am 60% and failing. I'm 60% and proud of it. I'm 60% and stuck here. I am losing my identity and my mind between 2 numbers. I am bored with this and not caring about the numbers. What are we doing to our students? Is student success about the marks? Our assessments run on a really well-oiled system. Most of our universities, Stellenbosch University has a massive office. It's one of our best well-oiled systems. But it drives everything. It drives learning. Our yearbook determines more of what an academic can do. We have so many rules in the yearbook and in faculty rules and in module-specific rules that our students probably need a PhD just to take an exam. So what we said yesterday, just in recap, is assessment or AI in this context posed very real risks. There's a risk to integrity, and integrity is important because we want all our students to know that the degree they leave with means something. This is an issue that we're going to have to solve collectively across the sector, and it's the issue specific to summative assessment. Sarah Elaine Eaton, academic integrity scholar, argues that in the post-plagiarism world we're moving into, both plagiarism and originality will be redefined. Redefined to exactly what? We don't know yet. That's something we have to figure out together. AI also, in addition to all the wonderful things shared by Mainstay, offers with that, part of that, and more than that, many useful affordances in our space, especially in areas where we've been struggling for a really long time, like feedback to students. We know that one of the key reasons why students don't use feedback is because it comes too late. It doesn't come when they can use it, and it comes in a format that they can't make sense of. We now have the opportunity to tailor feedback to the student's individual need, make it just in time, and tailor it to the academic's educational choices. This means we have the opportunity to really ramp up formative assessment and make it count for the first, or make it count more than we could ever before. We still have to navigate the risk of over-reliance, but I think the wins in that space might be more than the losses in the wrong line. I am excited as a professional development person about the opportunity assessment offers me to ask these kind of questions and to get large groups of people to engage with that, because we no longer have a choice. So in looking ahead, I'm going to quote my friend ChatGPT and say we can't fix this one module at a time. This is going to have to be an institutional and probably even a sector-wide commitment to figure out how we're going to address assessment in our institutions. If I note the thumbs up, last 2 sentences. If I tell an academic to make a change in a single module while all the other modules in the program continue as before, that is most likely going to be career suicide for that academic, or failure in that module for the students. I want to leave you with the following, which always, I'm not sure, inspires me probably more than it encourages me. In reflecting on what we can learn about learning through looking at gaming, James G. argues that, or makes the very prudent point that we're never going to take a gamer and give them a test to see whether they have mastered the game after they've played through a game. Playing through a game means you have mastered the game. And he asks, how can we do that in higher education? When will we be able to do that with our assessments in higher education? And then he says, he believes that we'll come to a point in assessment where we'll look back at what we are doing currently and go, how primitive were we? I'm hoping that we'll get there soon.
Thank you, Hanelie. That is, oops. I wanted to say big shoes to fill, but yes, thank you so much. So colleagues, summarizing what we said and culminating everybody's contribution into this framework, there were certain phrases that I want, or there is or are certain phrases that I want to highlight that's really very close to my heart. And it's going back to the philosophical underpinning of what the purpose is of higher education. And I've selected few phrases from my presentation yesterday, and within the ambit of the ethical and responsible use, and then people will say, what is ethical and what is responsible? There's a lot of professional development and training that needs to happen. And Andrew, I'm very happy that that African proverb resonated with you. I hope you take it back to America. That alone we can go fast, but together we go further. So I really want you to take a step back and wear your reflexive practitioner hat. So there's a difference between reflective and reflexive. So reflective means I look at myself in the mirror, but reflexive means stepping back and looking at myself, looking in the mirror. While I read these phrases to you, I really want you to just to think how you facilitate, or what role do you play in facilitating the learning journey of your students. So our professional identity and institutional frameworks are built on the premise of teacher authority. It's still the case. If we want to know it, we don't do it sometimes intentionally, but unintentionally. Like I said yesterday, we treat students as this blank slates where we want to deposit knowledge in. That has to change, because students were always co-creators of their stories. Second thing, institutional structures that no longer align with technology or technological realities. And this brings me back to the point of we advocate for ethical and responsible use of AI, but how ethical are we in terms of availing resources according to our contexts? And how do we align ourselves in terms of digital inequality? So these are really deep philosophical things that I want us to think about. This pedagogical wisdom and mutual respect that we need to gather. And this is why these conferences are so important, that we can think together. Pedagogy before technology. Technology cannot fix an ineffective pedagogy. So sometimes we will do professional development and lecturers will say, a flipped classroom just doesn't work. But then we go and dive deeper to see what are the real underlying mechanisms, employing theories like social and critical realism, to see what is really the underlying mechanisms for those things that make lecturers feeling overwhelmed, and then also students. The tension between student agency and teacher authority, that's a real thing. And these things brought me really to my, almost want to say, for a lack of a better phrase, to my knees to say, how do we regard the socio-cultural diversity of students? Then a focus on products, and this is what Hanelie also said, and Anné in his pointers, that if you focus on the product, and we said that yesterday also regarding postgraduate education, if you focus on the product, that reduces learning to a transaction, exchanging a product for a grade, rather than providing a transformative human experience. I think, Andrew, you also touched on that yesterday, is that Maya said that people will remember how you made them feel, not necessarily what you said. And if you gather alumni, I was privileged enough to be involved in program reviews for a long time. And students will always speak about that human interaction in the classroom. Lastly, confronting the gap between the education we think we are providing and the education students are actually creating for themselves. So the tenets, I showed the framework yesterday, but I just wanted to elaborate in the 2 minutes I've left on the tenets, the principles of this framework. I'm going to start with a balanced approach. So this framework really navigates the complex intersection of artificial intelligence and academic integrity. That's why we called it the AI squared competency framework. So how can you go from artificial intelligence to academic integrity? Next, critical engagement. So this framework acknowledges both the challenges and opportunities presented by AI technologies in academic contexts, avoiding both, and this is important, uncritical embrace and reactionary rejection. And De La Rose in 2023 said it's all this wall-fenced approach, or this comic picture that showed this house is burning down, but you look this side. So you have to find the balance. It's integrated in nature, so recognizing these 4 pillars of the framework and their interdependence and complementary nature. So successful implementation then of this framework, colleagues, really requires a holistic approach. The one cannot exist without the other. It's coexisting concepts that addresses all 4 pillars simultaneously rather than in isolation. And the last comment or the tenet is that it's really human-centered. And thank you for affirming that again, according to your principles. So human-centered approach to AI integration that maintains academic integrity while embracing the technological advancement. And colleagues, this is the framework. We are validating this framework also through, thank you to Professor Anné Verhoef for establishing ICSA with Dr. Leandi van der Berg. If you don't belong to ICSA yet, please contact him. It's the Artificial Intelligence Circle of the South African higher education institutions in South Africa. So we are very excited to put something on the table that bring everything together. And I see my time is up, and I just want to list that first pillar is ethics, intrinsic motivation to learn. We have to instill that motivation to become something. It's not only knowing, but it's facilitating that epistemological access from knowing, becoming, and being that nurse or that professional accountant. So that is first and foremost before we can think about anything else. Simultaneously, we must do capacity building, and Anné emphasized that also in regards to what they are doing at Northwest, to actually scaffold the digital literacy and competency to be able to adopt a digital pedagogy. Responsiveness, really, really critical. The curriculum, our pedagogy and assessment, like Hanelie said, has to be responsive, making sure our learning outcomes attest to what is needed. And then lastly, relevance in terms of policies, in terms of resources. We, like Andrew said, we must reach out to them. We must provide the resources. We must advocate for these resources, and we must provide also guidelines on how do you assess these tools for confidentiality, for integrity, and for availability. And I thank you for this privilege. Thank you so much.
Good morning again, everyone. Let me reintroduce myself. I'm Elizabeth Booi from the University of the Western Cape. I'm also the Siyaphumelela coach and also the president of the Southern African Association of Institutional Research. I'm not here to repeat what they said. I'm summarizing. And then I'm going to tell, because what they discussed is mostly in the teaching and learning. I'm from strategic institutional planning, so my view will be slightly different, but I'm not here to talk about my view specifically, but to reflect. And also because it cuts through all the roles that I mentioned, so let me try. I'm not an AI specialist, and I'm not claiming to be one. So, our three keynote speakers, since from yesterday, from what I took, there are 6 things that I'm going to talk about, and I'm also going to mention some of the opportunities as higher education we can really, really benefit from, because there are also some huge gaps and some disconnect in how we work as an institution as well as a sector as a whole. Because if you listen to the last speaker, she mentioned a collaboration which is a movement that they have started. I think also some voices needs to be part of that, especially if I'm thinking about institutional research. If we're not part of that discussions, how are you knowing some of the things that we support the institution in terms of strategic planning and all that, that we are missing out or you missing out? We can collaborate better. But I come from data. So let's talk about academic integrity and ethical use. The 3 speakers, they did mention and underline the agency of clear practical guidelines that needs to be developed within the institution. And this touches on practical frameworks or frameworks, policies, and guidelines that the universities are building. All 3 universities, they do have guidelines or procedures or frameworks that they are working towards. I'm not sure if all the universities they do have. 3 weeks or 4 weeks ago, I was on the webinar, co-facilitating the webinar with Prof. Verhoef. We were talking about the AI policies in higher education and how does it impact the work that we do in teaching and learning, and whether also the students are engaged in those discussions around AI policies in our education. How will our students know how to use these AI systems if we're not clear around the rules and how they need to be using them? I think he also mentioned and highlighted some use cases that about 1,200 plus or minus 1,200 cases at his institution were flagged as unethical use of AI. All this can be addressed, simple, and they spoke about the mechanism that you can use. It says it all. Academic integrity is very important, and we need to put it as a top priority in everything that we do. They also spoke about rethinking of assessment. If I could say, if your test can be done by a chatbot, you do not have an assessment. You have a busy work, right? Because you just have something there. They called for a layered, authentic assessment that blends AI wisely. From no use of AI, so they want to say, especially I think from Stellenbosch, they spoke about the framework that they, or the decision tree that they put together to say you need to decide whether your assessment needs to use AI, do you use it for brainstorming, and whether you don't need to use AI at all. So we need full integration of this, so it cannot be happening at pockets. I'm just wondering whether is the framework going to be cascaded to all faculties and institutional as well to assist? And also, is it a differentiated framework because of different programs that we offer as well? Does it allow for that? And one of my passion of mine is around literacy, because we cannot have these new technologies and not capacitate or assist with building the capacity and skills of our staff and students. They all spoke about development of courses. I know at UWC we do have those courses, and we also have workshops that we run for students and staff in terms of the use of AI. We also, as part of those who attended my talk yesterday, I spoke about the administrative empowering the administrative excellence at UWC, where we empower the administrators of UWC. One of the digital literacy courses that they do is on AI. We are intentional about what we are doing. So I'm glad that all the universities, they also do see the need to develop these AI literacy courses. Just to mention one university and put a spotlight on them, because I think in South Africa we do think of them as the AI institution, UJ. They do have an AI literacy course for all their students. And I think it is compulsory that all students take that course, which I applaud for them, because some of our institutions, we are doing it as an afterthought, or as and when, or it's an optional. It needs to be a compulsory course that students can leave the university with the right skills that are required for them to join the workforce that is already AI equipped or competent. So we need to also ask ourselves, are our students living with the right AI skills for the workplace? And that is a question for everyone, not only just for the panel. If we're not, then we are failing our students. But also it's not only about the courses, the short courses. Are we embedding it in the classroom as part of the curriculum, as part of the programs, not as an afterthought of you need to go and attend an intervention and learn about AI? Are we embedding it in as part of the curriculum as well? I said I'm going to talk about 6 things, and I think my time is almost getting done. So I'm going to talk about the gaps that we also need to fill in higher education. 1, AI is good, but we need to build people who can critically think around the use of AI. There is AI prompting, prompt engineering. If you don't know how to use AI and just put it or ask it in general terms, the output you get sometimes doesn't make sense. But some people already, like probably maybe Drew will know, there are people who also specializes in prompt engineering, helping people how to ask AI questions properly, because you need to have that critical mindset in order for you to engage with AI effectively. But I also want to speak about the staff readiness, because if we're equipping our students, we should not be leaving staff behind. They also need to be equipped. We should not do these things periodically or sporadically. It needs to be an intentional thing that we do for our own institution to empower our staff so that they can also support our students better. The panel also spoke about honesty and transparency. Students must declare and be honest, but it's not only about students. What about us? Do we declare when we use AI? I heard Drew said when they did a little poll yesterday, or a short poll yesterday, to ask how many of people are using AI. People are not declaring that they are using AI. And I think Prof said yesterday, it's similar. I'm not sure if it was Prof of Mariette. They said it's the same as when you are writing an academic paper and you go to the library, you get a book and you read and you write about it. At the end, you cite it and you reference it. Why are we not doing it? We should be encouraging that process. It's still the same. Let's declare, let's be honest. We are all using AI of some sort. AI has been around for more than 70 years. This year we celebrating 70 years of AI in existence. So you can't tell me that you are not using AI. Probably the most of the time people, when they are asked AI, they're thinking about generative AI. There is a lot. Okay, where does SAA? I told you I'm the president of SAA, or which is that long thing that I'm not going to repeat again. We built capacity for our institutional research, quality assurers, academic planners, HEMIS people, business intelligence people, And I think myself and Ashton as my vice president, we are very intentional this year in making sure that we set in our strategic plan for our term in office, we are intentional in building capacity in the new technologies that exist. Therefore, it means all the practitioners that form part of the SIA movement, you are all going to get training of some sort in AI, Internet of Things, if we do get to that, because I think that is the other thing that is missing. We need to be using those microchips. We always saying we are higher education, but I think higher education, we are always at the back foot. We are not progressing at the same rate as the industry, as the banks. We are always left behind. At the bank, when you walk in, probably maybe they do have sensors to know who is walking into the bank nowadays. I'm not sure, I'm not spilling any beans. But we can't even, we produce the good candidates to go out there and work at these prestigious companies and build companies, but we don't have these technologies within our institution. Why not? And this, I'm gonna ask back to them. And that is my end. Since I'm the chair of the session, we're moving into the question and answer. And I said I'm going to, we don't have a question and answer. Oh, so we don't have a question and answer session. So I'm just going to mention this because I thought that we do have a question and answer. I need us, when we go back, how our institutions are evaluating AI tools for embedded biases. I know someone mentioned it. That may disadvantage certain students group, and what steps are being taken to mitigate those risks? Because also our assessments, we don't have big data. And these AI models, they require most of the time enough big data. Lastly, how our programs are adapting to ensure that graduates are not only AI literate, but also are ready to thrive in workplaces transformed by AI automation and augmentation and VR and AI. Thank you very much. And let's give our invited panels a hand of applause.
Thank you very much. I'm just here to thank the presenters for their very rich input. I'm afraid we are not going to have questions because of time, but however, we encourage you to engage with the presenters during tea time if you have any questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks very much everybody, and thank you very much to our speakers this morning. I'd like to invite to the stage Musa Bizani from Northwest University. If you can please take to the stage. So Musa is a dynamic law student at Northwest University, a multilingual student leader and a passionate advocate for justice, transformation, and student empowerment. He currently serves as a Transformation and Diversity with Current Affairs Officer on the Student Campus Council and is a Community and Stakeholder Engagement Officer on the Student Representative Council. Musa's leadership is rooted in values of inclusion, accountability, and community upliftment. Champion initiatives that reimagine student success through equitable access, cultural cohesion, and active participation. His academic interests lie in public, constitutional, and administrative law, with research on comparative constitutionalism, particularly how institutional design can strengthen governance and legal certainty, drawing comparative lessons between jurisdictions in Africa. Musa also facilitates constitutional law tutorials and mentors first and second year students, combining legal insights with a deep commitment to student development. Through public speaking, grassroots activism, and institutional advocacy, he works tirelessly to ensure that every student, regardless of their background, feels seen, supported, and able to thrive. Let's give him a warm round of applause.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm very happy to be here. I am, therefore I rise. In pursuit of answering the old age intricate claim, who am I? A question more than just a name. I struggle with anxiety, doubt, and thought, wondering what I am to say and what I ought not. Should it be simple? Must the Pandle, my former high school principal's number plate so declare, I am who I am, truth in his stares. Perhaps he should be standing here, not me. He's retired now, but I think he understood the questions why. Is it academic, philosophical, or both entwined? For something so short, it really burdens the mind. It's 4 times shorter than my dissertation's theme, yet holds so much weight than my academic dream. But as it pleases the court, let me proceed and tell you not who I might be, but who I am indeed. I am the son of Karoo soil, soul-stitched in Beaufort dust, where winds don't whisper, they wail. Born from Western Cape's crust, where struggle hands with grace, where silence is loud and dreams still find place. I am mercy in motion, Musa by name, a Xhosa flame, flickering, fierce with no shame. Cradled by sacrifice, redefined by storm, in rooms where resilience quietly reforms. I'm the dream my mother never dared to sleep and see, yet woke up every day to rise with dignity. She, Umam Khenebe, kind beyond her own, raised not just me, but others she called her own. She told me, reminiscing on a call, of a boy who found books more thrilling than a ball. While others played, I taught and I read, I chased wisdom instead. I am, therefore I rise. At 11, I wedded my mission, not just to live, but to become a lawyer forged in fire, not born to succumb. And speaking of fire, let me not forget Mr. Thompson, my accounting teacher, whose spirit never went off duty. A man, a myth, a morning routine. Now, perhaps while speaking of a man who constantly reminded me of the great possibility of becoming who I want to be, let's move to a time I had to overcome. When he left, I stayed, not in who I was, but in who I'd become. When I learned to want the world and not just to wait for some. I'm not fatherless, I'm father forged, in pain made proud. My worth whispered not in wealth, but in how I speak loud. I arrived on campus not with certainty, but with spark, a boy from Beaufort ready to leave a mark. 3 strong streams, united flow, Africa stands proud and tall. Sien ons weer hier, lê met u hand, laat u seën rus oor ons land. Here I found more than just halls or books. I found brothers and sisters who'd leave me when purpose calls. From library corners to hostel keiers, we built a strong stitched in shared right. The student center knew my name before I did. Academic advising shaped my fears I hid. I walked halls where protests once rang, the echoes of 76 still loud, where Bantu education tried to dim black brilliance, yet we stood proud. From shovels, blood, to feast must fall chance. This journey has been paved with restless stance. Our Constitution affirms the right to education to transform struggle into might. My qualification became more than just a degree. It was a mirror of the kind of man I'd be. From first year nerves to final year might, there were nights where I wrestled with ratio and dissent, where sleep was brief, but purpose never went. I stand not as a symbol, but as a promise, Siyaphumelela, I will succeed, living the life my lineage labeled impossible, now palpable. On campus grounds, I bore more than books. I wore the trust of students in my looks, from tutored, class rep, facilitated, from SEC to SRC, each badge not of honor, but of responsibility. Transformation became policy, not policy, but pulse. Diversity, not theory, but a daily impulse. I didn't just study, I led, I served with each role I held, my soul preserved. I didn't climb alone, I turned to lift. I stood before classes as a mentor instead, helping others navigate their LLB tide, reminding those young minds that they are closer than they think. I saw the beauty in culture colliding and the power of communities uniting. I learned that leadership isn't about being in front, it is about standing beside, being bold, and bearing the brunt. I stayed because students needed to find out that the world on campus mirrored the world outside, still scarred in inequality, mirrored the world outside, wounded with pride. In dusty books I found tomorrow's light, and in every footnote I found my fight. I stand here not for glory today, but for growth, a product of perseverance, of purpose, and of both. My story is not just one of survival, but strategy redefined, a reimagined vision where no student is left behind. To expand opportunity not with speeches, but with plans, not for the privileged few, but for all those who have willing hands. To thrive in study, in purpose, in voice, to build not just careers, but meaningful choice. I'm not a tale of tragedy, but a triumph's tune, a moon that will rise in the middle of morning, a mind moved by meaning and a heart made whole. I do not live a life beyond my imagination, but simply one my parents thought was beyond expectation. I do not walk just for myself, but for those near me, the young ones who say, "Ndifuna ukufana nawe, I want to be like you." For them I stand, unyielding in the fray. I've learned that legacy isn't a crown or a name. It's a spark you pass on like a flame. I'm not the echo, I'm the voice. I'm the product of pain, purpose, and choice. I rise because she did, my mother, my guide. Her sacrifices, the winds on which I glide. I'm not just a man, I'm a movement begun, a generation reborn in the work I've done. I am, therefore I rise. I thank you.
Great, very well done. We've just got a couple of housekeeping announcements. So we're going to be breaking now for tea. The tea again is on the patio. We'll then be moving into the concurrent session. So a reminder that we've got the Letaba venue over there, the big auditorium, and then our lecture rooms 6 and 8. And lunch will be in the Unjabulo venue again. In terms of the catering, we do have 2 vegan options as well as the halal options. The vegan station and the halal station is right over here behind the screen. And in the lunch venue, it's in the foyer. If you cannot find it, Coop, if you wouldn't mind just standing up. So Coop will be the person who will direct you in terms of the halal meals. Okay, we do have limited ones, so please, those meals are restricted to our halal delegates. Okay. Then just a reminder for the students, you've got your tour to the Hector Peterson Memorial and the Vilakazi Street. Please meet in the parking lot at 1:30. It'll be in the parking lot by the Injabulo venue. So go early for lunch, eat your lunch, and then on the bus, and you'll be back by 6 o'clock in time for our cocktail function. So for everybody else, the cocktail function will be from 6 o'clock. The program will start at around 6:30. The dress code is optional in terms of African traditional or cultural. We will have drink vouchers for you as well, so when you arrive, you can collect your drink vouchers, and then you can enjoy the dance floor that we'll have over here. And just a reminder, we are aware that there are issues with the internet, and the internet is a bit slow. They do say our bandwidth is quite high at the moment, so if you can restrict your usage to essential work items only. Okay, thanks very much, everybody, and enjoy the rest of the day, and we'll see you at the cocktail function later. Thanks.